In this demonstration, I'll talk about using the IP and ipconfig utilities, which allow you to see your IP address settings on a server. I have two consoles open here. One is for a Windows system. That's the one on the right-hand side. You can see the little C prompt icon in the upper left side of the window. And the other window is PuTTY, so you see the PuTTY icon. And this is on a Linux server. So I'll start with the Linux server. I'll type ipconfig, and it shows me the IP address information for both ETH0 and LO. So ETH0 is Ethernet interface 0. There could be more than one, so if there were two Ethernet interfaces, I'd see an ETH0 and an ETH1, and so forth and so on. LO is always the loopback, and you can see there for link encapsulation it says local loopback right here. So if I look at ETH0, you can see my IP address. That's my public IP, 162.144.61.62. There's my broadcast address, my mask. We learned about the net mask. Now this is a public IP address, so this is actually on the internet. This server, it's not natted or anything. But on my Windows server, you'll see that that it is natted, so it'll have a private IP address, and it gives me some additional information in here as well. And then down here you can see my my loopback interface, and of course every Linux system will always have this this loopback interface, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Over here in Windows, it's a slightly different command. I'm going to type ipconfig, and there's all of my my Ethernet interfaces. I've got a bunch on here, so I've got some wireless adapters, I've got a couple local area network connections on here, and you'll see actually local area connection 9, which is towards the bottom there, actually has an IP version 6 address. But my wireless network, which you can see further up, so my wireless is the one that's called home, so my IP address is 192.168.1.3. And then I have a subnet mask, which is /24, so 255.255.255.0. And my default gateway is 192.168.1.1. You'll notice that in Windows, the default gateway is kind of straightforward. You just put in 192.168.1.1. But in Linux, it's not as easy to see that default gateway. It's a little more cryptic. But basically, if this is my IP address, the broadcast, you take the broadcast address and you AND it with the mask, and that gives you the network address. I'm sorry, the default gateway. So it is a little different in here. You have to do the broadcast instead of use the broadcast instead of the default gateway. But it's really the same thing. So if you take that mask and we AND that into the broadcast, you would end up with the default gateway, similar to what you might see in Windows. In Windows too, I'll show you. In many cases, you'll want to run the ipconfig /all for all information. You can see now I get a lot more information. I'll scroll up to the home address. So now notice that I have not only the name of the connection under my wireless connection. It also has a description of the adapter, the actual MAC address. So there's those 12 hexadecimal digits we talked about in the lecture portion. DHCP is turned on, so you can tell that I got my address from DHCP. There's my address and my subnet mask. It tells me when I obtain the lease, when it expires. So you can see on November 13th at 5:26 p.m. it's going to expire, so it'll renegotiate and try to get an address again. And then there's my default gateway, my DHCP server, DNS server, and you can have more than one DNS server, so it might list a whole bunch. You could also have more than one IP address, so you might see more than one IP listed with the all command. So that's ifconfig and ipconfig. So ifconfig was what we used in Linux, and the ipconfig command is what we used in Windows.